It's breakfast.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Sally Nugent and John Kay.
Our headlines today. The murder of Stephen Lawrence. The BBC names a sixth suspect. An exclusive investigation identifies Matthew White publicly for the first time.
The wife and mother of two of the victims of last week's Titanic submersible disaster tells us about the moment she realised neither of them would survive.
I sent a message to my family on shore. I said, I'm preparing for the worst. That's when I lost hope.
Good morning. As rising interest rates take hold, nearly half of mortgage payers say they are already struggling with debt. We'll go behind the scenes at a charity to hear about the help that's on offer.
In sport this morning, Australia have the edge in the Women's Ashes. England need 152 runs to win with just 5 wickets remaining as the one-off test edges towards a dramatic finish.
Elton John brings Glastonbury to a close with a bang in his final UK show.
Good morning. Yesterday, Coningsby in Lincolnshire reached 32.2 Celsius. This week, it's going to be much fresher, more changeable. There'll be rain and sunshine at times. But I'll have all the details throughout this morning's programme.
Good morning, everybody. Monday, the 26th of June, and a new suspect in the Stephen Lawrence murder has been identified by a BBC investigation and named publicly for the first time as Matthew White. The BBC has also found that the Metropolitan Police seriously mishandled key evidence relating to him.
Stephen was 18 when he was murdered in a racist attack by a gang of young white men in South London in 1993. 2 of the original 5 prime suspects were jailed for the murder in 2012. The other 3 have not been convicted of the crime. Our correspondent Danielle De Simone reports.
Well, you can watch Daniel's full report on BBC One at 8:30 tonight, or it's on the BBC iPlayer now as well. And you can read his full investigation online. That's at bbc.co.uk/news. Right, the time is 6:05. What else do we need to know this morning? Sally has more of today's news.
Now, the wife and mother of Shahzada and Sulaiman Dawood, who died on the submersible which imploded while exploring the wreck of the Titanic, has told the BBC that she was originally supposed to be on that trip. Christine Dawood said she'd given up her place for Sulaiman, who'd wanted to break a world record by completing his Rubik's Cube near the seabed. She spoke to our North America correspondent, Nomia Iqbal. Celestina, thanks very much indeed. It certainly looks like a glorious day there. Now, did you see him? Sir Elton John has brought down the curtain on this year's Glastonbury Festival. He played all the hits for the crowd at Worthy Farm, watched by millions more on the television. It's the first time he's played Glastonbury, though you wouldn't know, would you? It's also very likely to be his last ever UK gig. He was incredible. He's still standing, I'm standing, so's Carol. Morning, Carol.
Good morning, Sal. Good morning to you too. And phew, what a scorcher it was yesterday. In fact, we had a temperature reaching 32.2 Celsius in Coningsby in Lincolnshire. Now this week, it is going to turn much fresher in the south. So Sal and John, it's all changed this week. What we would expect is British weather.
Exactly, and it's nice of you to tie in the orange with the colours around you as well, Carol. That's very thoughtful of you.
I'd like to say, John, it's all my own work.
It's not. I like your new weather map. Very, very posh.
You know, I'm used to being in a broom cupboard to do the weather in the mornings, so it's so nice to actually be able to walk over and walk back. It's a whole new world for me.
It is. It's lovely to have you here, Carol. Thank you.
Get back in your cupboard. We'll be back in half an hour's time. It's 6:18. Let's look at some of the Monday morning papers, shall we? And what a dramatic weekend it's been. UK must prepare for sudden collapse of Russia is the headline in the Times today, the paper referring to a warning from a senior government source here, it says, over the stability of President Putin's regime following that failed insurrection at the weekend.
The Duchess of York's breast cancer diagnosis is the lead story in the Mirror this morning. The paper says she has her family rallying around her.
Another royal story for you on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today. They're leading with the Prince of Wales, Prince William, saying he's committed to ending homelessness as he prepares to launch a major project which was 2 years in the making. The paper says it could define his legacy as Prince of Wales as he aims to follow in the footsteps of his late mother.
And let's have a look at a couple of the stories inside the newspapers this morning. There's one incredible story about a mother who has become a champion stone skimmer. You know, as in stone skimming?
144 feet, apparently, according to the Mail, but she can do it. It's absolutely amazing.
That picture.
I'm worried about the photographer, aren't you?
Wonder how many bounces that
just
gets.
Dodged it. Oh, there's a seagull above as well. That got away with it as well. Yes, apparently you have to look for a flat, round, evenly weighted stone with a corner wrapping around your index finger.
Right.
That's the cheek advice. And step 4 in the top 5 tips is check for swimmers and wildlife within the throwing zone.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm rubbish
Very
at skimming
important.
stones. But my very, very favourite story in the newspapers this morning is about, it's important, I think, we've got new breakfast mugs here.
Oh, yeah?
What's the best biscuit to dunk into your tea, which we talk about every now and again here on Breakfast, don't we?
But what's striking is when they did a survey on this about, 6 months ago,
Yes.
divided the nation,
Yes.
the most popular biscuit to dunk
Wasn't a biscuit.
was a Jaffa cake.
It
Do you
was a
remember?
Jaffa
And
cake.
it all melted.
And now it's a ginger nut.
And the
Apparently
Jaffa
that's the
cake
best
has
one.
fallen out of the top 10 completely. So
Ginger nut and then I think a rich tea second.
what a fickle lot we are. It's 6:20.
Now, nearly half of mortgage payers are already struggling to keep up with their bills this year. That's according to some new research by a debt charity.
Ben has been looking at this for us this morning. Ben, interest rates going up again last week, and the situation for so many households seems to be getting tighter and tighter, doesn't it?
Yeah, we spoke about this a lot last week because of the interest rate decision by the Bank of England, and this gives us a glimpse into the actual real-world effect it's having on people. Let me explain the details of this. Rising housing costs are just the latest big squeeze on the cost of living, and it's a really worrying time, especially if you've already seen your repayments go up by hundreds of pounds a month. So some of the work there that the charity Step Change is doing. Remember, there's plenty of advice and support as well on the BBC's cost of living page. Just search for BBC cost of living and it should come up in your search browser. Sally, John, the thing with all of these interest rate rises, it's designed to put a brake on those rising prices ultimately, but in the short term, it is creating even more pain for people with those increased mortgage costs.
Absolutely right, Ben. Thank you.
Well, joining us now on the sofa is the Chief Executive of Step Change, Vicky Brownridge. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in. We got a sense from the calls that your teams were receiving there just about the massive need that so many people have for information and help right now.
Yeah.
Vicky, thank you very much indeed for coming in. There's loads of advice and information on the BBC News website, on Action Line as well, if you need any help.
Well, if you have a question you'd like to ask our mortgage expert, Sally Mitchell, you can send us a message on WhatsApp. The number is 0330 123 0440 or scan the QR code. You can still get in touch with us, of course, on Twitter and on email too. Sally's going to be here at 8:30 this morning to answer all of your questions. Really, really good advice coming your way.
It's coming up to 6:30. You're watching Breakfast this Monday morning. Thank you for joining us. And still to come on today's programme, did you stay up? Wasn't
Yes.
it brilliant? What a weekend, eh?
Yeah, well, it's over for another year, but we will be looking back at the highlights of the last few days and hearing what some of those 200,000 music fans made of it.
Colin Patterson is going to be there live as they pack up their tents and head back to the car parks and the coach parks in the next hour or so. All from Glastonbury to come.
Before all that, it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather where you are this morning.
Thank you very much indeed. Morning everybody, just after 6:30. Breakfast this morning with Sally and John.
Now, the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be working to shore up his authority today after an attempted rebellion by mercenary soldiers from the Wagner Group over the weekend.
So we thought we'd just run through what has happened over the last 2 extraordinary days because Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, said the revolt on Saturday exposed real cracks in Putin's regime and raises now profound questions about the Russian leader's grip on power.
So let's take a look back at what has happened over a remarkable 36 hours. On Friday morning, the Wagner boss, Yevgeny Prigozhin, questioned the war in Ukraine and started what he called his march for justice.
On Saturday, he declared that 25,000 of his troops had crossed the border from Ukraine in the early hours of the morning, with their sights set on getting to Moscow. They eventually got to within around 300 miles of the capital, taking 2 cities along the way.
Well, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, went on TV to denounce what he called the criminal adventure and warned of severe punishments for those involved. Then at around 9 p.m, a complete turnaround as Russian state media reported that Prigozhin had left for Belarus and criminal charges against him had been dropped.
And one of the cities briefly occupied by the Wagner troops was Rostov-on-Don. Residents there cheered the mercenaries in a show of support as they left the city in the early hours of Sunday morning. So, where does this all leave us? Let's speak now to journalist Misha Glenny, who's an expert on the Balkans and is currently rector at the Institute of Human Sciences in Vienna. Misha, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. In all your years of studying this region, have you ever known a couple of days like this? Misha Glenny, we appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you for joining us on BBC Breakfast.
Thank you.
It is a busy time, isn't it? We've had Glastonbury. We're having a little chat about Glastonbury later in the programme. Lots of cricket happening. John's here to talk about the Women's Ashes.
Good morning. Yeah, this busy summer of sport rolls on, doesn't it? And yeah, interestingly at the moment, we've got Wimbledon, of course, next week, but we see the second Men's Ashes test start on Wednesday. But we're right in the middle of the first Women's Ashes test, which is a sort of standalone test at the moment. And in this multi-format series in which they play, more points are on offer for this first test. It's the only test they play. So you want to get off to the best start possible. But England are up against it after some loss.
How many times in your career have you said that?
It's such a shame. It's such a shame. But Australia's such a good team. You know, the best team really in women's cricket. It was always going to be tough, but they've really gone toe to toe. And they will be disappointed with the sort of loss of those wickets yesterday, which has really put them up against it heading into this final day today. But hey, fingers crossed. Come on, where there's hope, there's always a way, isn't there? Yes, very good morning. England's hopes of victory in the one-off Ashes test are in the balance after the loss of 5 late wickets yesterday evening. This after Australia were bowled out for 257, and it means England need 152 runs to win on the final day today, as Ben Croucher reports. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. They're going for it, aren't they? Just a week to go, as I was saying, until the start of Wimbledon, and you wonder what challenge the men's world #1 Carlos Alcaraz will pose after he won his first grass court title, adding its name to that list.
Was he playing? I'm assuming that was him that we just saw sliding in at the end. I'd be very disappointed if it wasn't.
I wonder if they've changed the menu. Is it hot dogs and pretzels and popcorn as well? John, lovely stuff. Thank you.
Carol is with us this morning and has all the weather for us. It looked glorious yesterday in London, Carol.
It certainly was. We had 32.2 Celsius as a temperature in Lincolnshire as well, Sal. It was really quite hot and humid as well. You'll be pleased to hear that this week is not going to be as humid as it was. Now, today, what we're looking at is a beautiful start to the day. This is one of our weather watchers taken earlier in Perth. It's up to 24 degrees. So, Sal and John, you turn your back for 2 minutes and the weather changes.
I know, it's been crazy, hasn't it? It really has, but it looks like a bit fresher over the next couple of days, yeah?
Yes, this week. Overnight, though, on Tuesday into Wednesday, it could be quite sticky once again across some southern areas in particular.
OK, Carol, for now, thank you very much indeed.
Now, if you are walking around the house this morning humming Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, or maybe Candle in the Wind, or my favourite, Tiny Dancer, you're not alone.
Rocket Man. Oh, gosh, they're all round in my head this morning. Millions of us stayed up way too late watching Sir Elton John bringing the Glastonbury Festival to a close after 3 astonishing days of music and dressing up, and thankfully, as Carol was just saying, a surprising lack of rain this year.
Yeah, our entertainment correspondent, I should say, Colin Patterson, was there from the very start. Oh, Colin, we talked to you right at the start, and you are also still standing. I'm very impressed. Now the clear up start. Colin, you look like you have had a ball. Thank you so much for bringing us all that joy from Glastonbury.
We should have got him a bin bag, shouldn't we? He could help.
He's doing that later.
You're watching BBC Breakfast. Still to come on this morning's programme, you might remember how Max the dog won millions of fans during the COVID lockdowns with his walks through the Lake District.
Now Max sadly died last year, but now his owner has recruited a new member to the pack, Tally, and Tally is gorgeous. More on that at 10 to 8, so do stay with us.
We'll have all the headlines for you at 7 o'clock in a couple of minutes. But now let's join our teams around the UK for the news, the travel and weather, where you are. See you in a moment. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Sally Nugent and John Kay.
Our headlines for you today. The murder of Stephen Lawrence. The BBC names a sixth suspect. An exclusive investigation identifies Matthew White publicly for the very first time.
The wife and mother of two of the victims of last week's Titanic submersible disaster tells us about the moment she realised that neither of them would survive.
I sent a message to my family on shore. I said, I'm preparing for the worst. That's when I lost hope.
Making homelessness a thing of the past, the Prince of Wales launches a 5-year project to try and bring an end to rough sleeping.
In sport this morning, Australia have the edge in the women's Ashes. England need 152 runs to win with just 5 wickets remaining as the one-off test edges towards a dramatic finish.
Good morning. This week is looking much fresher than it was last week. We're losing the humidity for most of us. We'll have rain at times, but equally there will be some sunshine. I'll have all the details throughout the rest of this morning's programme.
Morning all, Monday the 26th of June, and a new suspect in the Stephen Lawrence murder has been identified by a BBC investigation and named publicly for the first time as Matthew White. The BBC has also found that the Metropolitan Police seriously mishandled key evidence relating to him.
Well, Stephen was 18 when he was murdered in a racist attack by a gang of young white men in South London in 1993. 2 of the original 5 prime suspects were jailed for the murder in 2012. The other 3 have not been convicted of the crime. Our correspondent Daniel De Simone reports.
Well, you can watch Daniel's full report on BBC One. That's tonight at 8:30. It's on the BBC iPlayer right now. And you can also read a text version of his full investigation. That is on the website at bbc.co.uk/news. The time is 6 minutes past 7. What else do we need to know this morning? Sally has more of today's news.
John, the wife and mother of Shahzada and Suleiman Dawood, who died on the submersible which imploded while exploring the wreck of the Titanic, has told the BBC that she was originally supposed to be on the trip. Christine Dawood said she'd given up her place for Suleiman, who'd wanted to break a world record by completing his Rubik's Cube near the seabed. Well, she's spoken to our North America correspondent, Nomia Iqbal. One thing we definitely need to know then is the weather forecast. Carol can tell us what's going to happen. Morning, Carol.
Good morning, Sal. Good morning to you too. Well, I can tell you this week is going to be much fresher than it was last week. And starting off with this gorgeous picture sent in a bit earlier from one of our weather watchers. The blue sky tells the story. So once again, you will notice that. And as we go through the rest of the week, it is going to remain fresher. There will be some rain at times, but equally there'll be some sunshine as well. Sal and John.
Thank you very much, Carol.
The time is 7:15 and the Prince of Wales is launching a major project today. He says he wants to end homelessness completely in 6 different places across the UK within the next 5 years.
He was inspired, of course, by childhood visits to a rough sleepers charity with his mother, Diana. Prince William wants to prove that homelessness can be eradicated if the right planning and resources are in place. Our royal correspondent, Daniela Relf, has more on this now.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. And in London, in a moment, we'll speak to Lord John Bird, who's the founder of The Big Issue and one of the Big Issue's salesmen there who sold copies of the magazine with Prince William. Andy Burnham, if we start with you, how significant a commitment is this from the Prince of Wales, eradicating homelessness, he says?
We're also joined this morning by Lord John Bird, founder of The Big Issue, and Dave Martin, who sold copies of the magazine. Morning to you both. Morning, Dave. It's great to see you. You actually sold the magazine with the Prince of Wales. Just remind us what that was like and what did he say about the work he wanted to do? Andy Burnham, Lord Bird and Dave Martin, thank you all very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thank you.
It's coming up to 7:30 and it's time now to check in with our teams around the UK to get the news, the travel and weather where you are. See you in a second. Good morning everybody, 7:31, breakfast today with Sally and John.
Now, smokers or former smokers in England who are aged between 55 and 74 will be offered an NHS lung cancer test under new plans designed to boost survival rates. The Health Minister, Helen Whately, joins us now.
Yes, she's in our studio in Westminster. Good morning to you. Can you explain to us, I suppose, to start with, how are these screenings going to work? OK, we will wait for that response. Helen Whately, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
John is here this morning with the sport, and once again the cricket's in the balance.
Isn't it just? Yes, good morning. What a thrilling summer it's been. But disappointingly for England in this standalone test, they lost late wickets yesterday. So going into the final day today, things very much in the balance. But I mean, what a thrilling match it's been so far, just as the opening test in the men's series was as well. So yeah, it's kind of adding to the excitement and thrill that is proving
It's only just begun
of this brilliant summer of sport we're seeing play out at the moment. Yes, good morning. It is in the balance though for England after those late wickets yesterday, which were taken by Australia. But England are adamant they'll be going for the win. Yes, well worth keeping an eye on things at Trent Bridge today. Now, with just a week to go until the start of Wimbledon, you wonder what challenge the men's world #1 Carlos Alcaraz will pose after he won his first grass court title at Queen's yesterday, beating Alex de Minaur. After their success with football, do we see them replicating that in F1? You wouldn't bet against them, would you?
Well, I wouldn't bet against Ryan Reynolds at any point. Yeah, John, thanks very much.
Bring in
the whole new series.
That's a whole new show, yeah.
7:45, and all that hot, dry weather of the last few weeks is catching up with us, isn't it, Carol? Morning.
That's right, John. Good morning, both. Good morning to you too. I want to start by showing you this. This is the average percentage of rainfall in southeast England in these months. So February was quite dry. It was very wet, as you can see here, 209%, twice as much, more than that in March. Wednesday in the far south, but we're looking at something fresher in the north, 15 to 18. So Sal and John, much more comfortable for sleeping in.
It's a bit early for a romp though, isn't it?
Romping clouds.
It's ever too early.
After 8 o'clock. Carol, we'll see you again a bit later. You're going to love this lovely story coming up.
Yeah, we're talking about heroes, aren't we? There were many kinds of heroes during the pandemic. Not all of them were human.
Yeah, Max was a Springer Spaniel. He won millions of fans for his Lake District walks during lockdown, and they were filmed and posted online, giving us all a much needed boost when we were stuck inside, and as well they raised funds for various good causes.
Now, sadly, Max died last year, but his owner has introduced a new member to the pack. He is called Tally, and he's already following in Max's paw steps. Get it?
Alison Freeman's been to meet him.
Want one?
Should we get one?
Shall we? Shall we?
No, we'll get
just
bits
to sit
of
on the sofa next to
hair,
me.
Not on a new sofa. No dogs on the sofa. Well, today, but no doubt there'll be some here before too long. It's 7:52.
Now, the tents are coming down at Glastonbury this morning after an incredible 3 days of music there.
And as always, there were some epic sing-alongs, weren't there? Including a very special one with Lewis Capaldi, who was struggling with his voice at one point, and the crowd stepped in to help him. Just have a look.
What a moment that was, wasn't
really
it?
Was.
Really incredible moment when the crowd carried Lewis Capaldi through that gorgeous song. And of course, Lewis Capaldi revealed last year he has Tourette's syndrome. You could probably see there he was displaying some of those symptoms on stage, as well as having a sore throat and being exhausted. Well, we're joined now by Seren J, who is a Tourette's advocate from Chelmsford. Morning, Seren. Thanks so much for talking to us this morning. What did you make of Lewis's performance, and what happened with the crowd?
Seren, lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us here on Breakfast this morning. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Still to come here on Breakfast, Nick Mohammed. Of course, Nate Shelley from the hit series Ted Lasso is in for a chat. Fans of the show will recognise the seats you can see there and that very special word, believe. He's going to be talking about his time at AFC Richmond and your new live comedy show.
That's correct, yeah. Thanks so much for having me, by the way, in the new studio. It's looking great.
It's lovely to have you.
Thank you very much.
Very soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
You can swap all those empty seats for this one. Time now to check in with our teams around the UK. Let's get the news, the travel and weather where you are. Headlines in just a second. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Sally Nugent and John Kay.
Our headlines for you today. The murder of Stephen Lawrence. The BBC names a sixth suspect. An exclusive investigation identifies Matthew White publicly for the very first time.
The wife and mother of two of the victims of last week's Titanic submersible disaster tells us about the moment when she realised neither of them was going to survive.
I sent a message to my family on shore. I said, I'm preparing for the worst. That's when I lost hope.
Good morning. As rising interest rates take hold, nearly half of mortgage payers say they're already struggling with debt. We go behind the scenes at a charity to hear about the help on offer.
Celebrating the extraordinary life of Laura Nuttall, the 23-year-old who died from an aggressive brain cancer. We will be chatting to her mum and her sister.
Good morning. Yesterday, temperatures reached 32.2 Celsius in Lincolnshire. This week, it's going to turn fresher. There'll be sunshine and showers, but some of us will also see some rain. I'll have all the details later in the programme.
Morning everybody, Monday the 26th of June, and our main story is that a new suspect in the Stephen Lawrence murder has been identified by a BBC investigation and named publicly for the very first time as Matthew White. The BBC has also found that the Metropolitan Police seriously mishandled key evidence relating to him.
Stephen was 18 when he was murdered in a racist attack by a gang of young white men in South London in 1993. Two of the original 5 prime suspects were jailed for the murder in 2012. The other 3 have not been convicted of the crime. Our correspondent Daniel De Simone reports.
Well, Daniel's full report will be on BBC One at 8:30 tonight, or you can watch it right now actually on the BBC iPlayer. And there's a full text version of his investigation online at bbc.co.uk/news. Right, it's 8:05. What else do we need to know this morning? Sally has more of the news.
Well, John, the wife and mother of Shahzada and Suleiman Dawood, who died on the submersible which imploded while exploring the wreck of the Titanic, has told the BBC that she was originally supposed to be on the trip. Christine Dawood said she had given up her place for Suleiman, who'd wanted to break a world record by completing his Rubik's Cube near the seabed. She's spoken to our North America correspondent, Namia Iqbal. Ever UK gig, and it was incredible to watch. If you didn't see it, you can catch up with it on the iPlayer. I know it was amazing. Carol is here with us. Carol, did you watch it?
I saw some of it, Sal, and it was excellent. And I'm glad to say I'm not going to let the sun go down on me or anyone else this week. It's a beautiful sunny start to the day in Cumbria. Now, a few things you need to know about the weather this week. It's east. It won't be long before the cloud romps in, followed by the rain, and it's going to turn more humid just for a time. Sal and John.
Your challenge is to get more Elton John songs into every single weather forecast this morning.
I've already done We're Still Standing. What else? We need to think of
2.
something.
Right, we'll get some more. Thank you very much indeed, Carol. It's 8:15 and we get to meet some amazing people here on Breakfast, don't we? And one of the most inspiring people we have ever met was Laura Nuttall. Now, she died last month from a brain tumour, and tomorrow night her friends and family are going to be celebrating her life at a memorial service.
Just like Laura, who did so many incredible things after her diagnosis, the service will be quirky, unique and full of fun.
And one of the people who knew Laura the very best was her younger sister Gracie. We're going to speak to her in just a moment, but first she's been sharing memories of their special bond. The brilliant Laura Nuttall, and those clips, interviews, footage gathered by her sister Gracie, who joins us now on the sofa with their mum Nicola. Good morning to both of you. I love your T-shirts. Do you want to show us your T-shirts? Because it just says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, these are Laura's words in a letter that she wrote to Barrowford Primary School. She was asked to do their leavers letter, which is a great honour, and she finished it with that. And we are going to try and be more Laura.
Be more Laura. Be kind, be brave, be silly, be honest. And we got a glimpse of all those things, I think, in the little film that we played that you gathered. I mean, just explain to people, why was it so important for you, Gracie, to chronicle, to film, to capture those moments over the last couple of years, difficult as it must have been?
Incredible.
Well, look, thank you both so much for coming in and chatting with us this morning and remembering and celebrating Laura. I hope the next couple of days it's going to be emotional, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult at times,
emotional.
but you are, as Sandra Bullock said, an extraordinary family and friendship group. And we'll keep in touch, right? We'll keep talking about this in the future. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Morning Live follows breakfast on BBC One this morning. Let's find out what they've got. It is Michelle and Gordon. Morning.
Yes, good morning. Gosh, we were just listening there. What an inspirational young woman.
Certainly is.
Now, coming up today, a record 2.5 million people are signed off work with long-term sickness, and the last thing you want to do when you're ill is be stressed about money. Today, solicitor Aisha Nayar explains your rights and why your employer needs to give you reasonable time to recover.
And after an uncertain few days since the hike in interest rates, millions of families are facing a summer of squeezed spending. So financial expert Iona Baines answering your questions.
Yes, after all the noise in the news, we'll be covering what the base rate is, how it can bring down inflation and what that means for your mortgage, debts and savings.
And it's the ticking time bomb that's preventable in 90% of cases. Dr. Zan tells us why one type of liver disease is getting a new name to reduce stigma.
So liver disease is often associated with alcohol, but there are lots of other factors at play. So I'll be explaining why, if you have an apple-shaped round tummy, you might want to get checked.
All that plus consumer champ Matt Allright's tracking where your closed donations go from the mysterious collection points popping up that could potentially be leaving charities out of pocket.
And it's been making us laugh since 2006. Star of BBC comedy Not Going Out's Hugh Dennis tells us why filming in front of a live studio audience is the key to the show's success. We'll see you at 9:15.
We will see you then.
Looking forward to it. Right, it's 8:30. Let's get the news, the travel and weather from our teams around the UK. See you again in a second. (8:33) Monday morning. Thank you for joining John and Sally.
Nearly half of mortgage payers are already struggling, as you probably know, to keep up with their bills this year. That's according to some new research by a debt charity.
Ben is going to look at this for us now because interest rates going up again last week. The situation only getting more serious for many households, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about the Bank of England, it seems a far off distant institution. But what we're seeing, especially from this research, is the real impact on people's lives day to day. Let me explain what we've learned, because rising housing costs are just the latest big squeeze on the cost of living. And it is a really, really worrying time, especially if you've already seen your repayments go up by hundreds of pounds a month. The debt charity Step Change has shared some exclusive data with us, and it shows that more than a quarter of all the people coming to them new say the rising cost of living is the source of their debt. And the reason, Sally and John, that the bank puts interest rates up is to try and control rising prices in the medium to long term. But of course, in the short term, the result of that is borrowing becomes more expensive and it just increases the pain for many households.
Ben, thank you very much indeed. We're going to stay on this subject and answer some of your questions. Really important advice coming now, because we're going to speak to mortgage advisor and broker Sally Mitchell. Morning, Sally.
Morning.
It's really tricky, isn't it, as Ben was saying? Very stressful for lots of people, and rates could go up again.
Yeah.
Deal with it now.
Deal with it now.
OK, thank you so
much. Great advice for life in general. Sally, thank you.
My pleasure.
Now, if you are walking around the house humming Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, or maybe Candle in the Wind, or I'm Still Standing this morning, not alone.
All of them. All of them.
Every
Every single one. Because millions of us watched Sir Elton John bring the Glastonbury Festival to a close last night after 3 days of music and dressing up and, well, for once, no rain, no mud.
Our entertainment correspondent Colin Patterson was there from the start and joins us now, and I think he's got quite a lot of tidying up to do. Morning, Colin.
39 minutes. The queues for the showers at Glastonbury.
are longer than that.
I think he deserves it, though. He was brilliant.
I think that 39 minutes is quicker than Rocket Man last night, which seemed to go on for about an hour and a half.
No, it didn't.
No, I mean, in the nicest possible way, but it was quite an extended
Great.
version, wasn't it?
I thought it was good. And I love all the guests that he had with him as well.
Elton, if you're watching this morning, we all loved it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a great night.
Carol is here with the weather, and I know you loved it too, didn't you, Carol?
I did, and I was just thinking, isn't that how both of you arrive at work every morning?
Yeah, it is.
Or maybe it's better going home that way.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. This morning, it's quite a mild start to the day, but one thing that you will notice is it's a bit fresher feeling. It's not as humid for most as it has been. These are our temperatures currently. So in London, it's 18 degrees. In Lossiemouth, it's 15 degrees. Lighter, more patchy in the south. And tomorrow's top temperatures up to around about 24 degrees, John and Sal.
So Glastonbury, they were lucky to get away with it, weren't they? They just that weather.
Wow. And if they'd been there on Thursday, it would be a whole different story because we're expecting some rain on Thursday.
I always got the muddy years every time I went there.
There is justice.
Yeah, thank you. Right, cheers, Carol.
Now, if you are a Ted Lasso fan, you will know Nick Mohammed as AFC Richmond's kitman, Nate Shelley.
But he's also been a regular on the comedy circuit for years with another character called Mr. Swallow, and he's bringing him back for a new show.
Yeah, more on that in just a moment. But first, let's see him as Nate in Ted Lasso. Nick joins us on the sofa now. Morning, Nick.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us in our new studio.
I know,
it's lovely to have you
it's
here.
great.
Just watching that, your character Nate.
Yes.
He goes on quite the journey, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I mean, season one, he's the underdog sort of kit man.
We love him.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know, I feel like he epitomises the show in that regard, in that Ted comes along, believes in him.
Nick, lovely to have you here. I love the fact that you've seen Carol's weather forecast.
I know. I mean, I did feel a little bit underdressed, to be fair, but
it's right.
It is warm outside.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
And Nick's comedy show, The Very Best and Worst of Mr. Swallow, is at the Duke of York's Theatre in London in September.
You're watching BBC Breakfast. The time is 8:59.
The mother of Stephen Lawrence has said she is infuriated but not surprised by revelations of yet more police failings in the botched investigation into her son's murder.
Yes, Baroness Lawrence made this comment after a new suspect in the 1993 killing was identified by a BBC investigation and named publicly for the first time as Matthew White.
The BBC has also found that the Metropolitan Police seriously mishandled key evidence relating to him.
Stephen, of course, was 18 when he was murdered in a racist attack by a gang of young white men in South London in 1993. Now, 2 of the original 5 prime suspects were jailed for the murder in 2012. The other 3 have not been convicted of the crime.
Well, our correspondent Daniel De Simone has this report. Well, Stephen's mother, Doreen, now Baroness Lawrence, has issued a damning statement this morning in reaction to the police failings revealed by the BBC. She says the latest revelation that a key suspect in the murder could have and should have been properly and thoroughly investigated is shocking but unsurprising.
She goes on to say what is infuriating is that the man who is said to have led the murderous attack on my son has evaded justice because of police failures. And she says, yet not a single police officer has faced or will ever face action.
It should not have taken a journalist to do the job that a huge, highly resourced institution should have done.
Well, you can watch Daniel De Simone's full report on BBC One at 8:30 tonight. It's also on the BBC iPlayer now.
Yeah, and you can read the full investigation online at bbc.co.uk news.
It's time now to have a last quick look at the headlines in the nations and regions of the UK. We'll see you again in a moment. Welcome back. 9 minutes past 9. Now, there were many kinds of heroes during the pandemic, weren't there? Not all of them were human. There's a clue.
Yeah. This is Max, Springer Spaniel, who won millions of fans for his Lake District walks, which were filmed and posted online, giving a much-needed boost to people stuck inside, as well as raising funds for various good causes.
We all love Max,
Yes.
didn't we? Now, sadly, he died last year, but now his owner has introduced a new member to the pack. He's a puppy called Tally. He's already following in Max's paw steps, and Alison Freeman has the tail.
Tally got a bit tired there, just needed a little bit of help at the end on that walk.
I know how he feels.
It's only little, yeah, me too.
I know how he feels.
Well done.
Yeah, well done you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks for your lovely messages about our new sofa and our new studio. We will welcome you back here as ever tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock.
Now on BBC One, it's time for Morning Live with Michelle and Gordon.
Morning both.
Good morning. Yes, coming up.